beautiful downtown tire factory and coffee shop. And of course, with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick,
Howdy, folks.
Fred, the true staffer. Glad to see you again, Fred.
I see you got no light up there. You got a bulb on your head,
Yeah.
but no light in it.
Yeah, I forgot to plug it in. Well, anyway, I don't know if we're on live because we don't have a monitor tonight, boy, and I'll tell you, it's just like driving in the dark without any lights, Fred. It's hard to
Yeah.
figure it all out, but I think we're on. So I want to welcome you to tonight's program, and of course, this is the 8,371st consecutive broadcast of this live program.
It
So
is?
congratulations, Fred. What's it been now, 20, 30 years?
I don't think it's more than 5 or 6 years.
Huh, where you been? Okay, we're glad to have you with us tonight, and boy, oh boy, have we got a lot to talk about, as usual. And of course, the month of May is National Earwax Society Month. So don't forget to donate your earwax and bring it to the earwax collection sites all over the United States, because there was just a terrible winter this year, Fred, and many, many bees lost their lives.
Yes.
And when the bees aren't producing, they're not producing wax. And so you have a wax shortage, and that's why we have these collection cans. You can go to any collection center around the country, and there's several in Eau Claire, and just write to Fred, and he'll give you the address of all the collection centers in Eau Claire. And you can get your National Earwax Society can and just hook it to your ear like this one and let the earwax drain right into the can. And when it's full, you just seal it, throw it in the post office, and it's guaranteed postage. Isn't that correct, Fred?
No,
All right.
not.
Okay, and of course we're brought to you by the fine folks at Flavin and Flavin Pop Company, and they've been in the business now for over 100 years, Fred, and they came over from the old country, the Flavin family, and started Flavin Pop and all the other fine products.
Yes, all the other fine products that you can't buy anywhere.
And if you
That's
want
how fine they are.
to get your Flavin Pop, you can only buy it in several places.
And none of them carry it here.
Fine funeral homes everywhere. The corner of Ferry and Menominee Street, and that's about it. And we won't go into how it ended up being sold in the funeral homes around the nation, but that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
All right, Freddie boy, we got a lot to talk about, and of course, the old Eau Claire School Board, as we speak here tonight, is starting to have working on another referendum where they're going to hold one of them Sunday elections, probably when everyone's up north either fishing or hunting for deer. They're going to They're going to have another one of them Saturday elections. This time, they tricked us, Fred. Last time, I think it was about 5 years ago, they said, you give us $27 million and we'll leave you alone. Because we know that we're forcing all the senior citizens and shut-ins and the elderly, we're forcing them out of house and home with these communist-type taxes. And they said, we'll only force these taxes on you one more time. Well, now, Fred, as we speak tonight, they're carving up the old turkey again down there at the school board building, and the benevolent socialists down there decided that this time, only 5 short years later, they want upwards of 40 million buckaroos, Fred. 40 million greenbacks.
Yes.
Now, anyone out there that got a calculator, and of course we're taking calls, and anyone out there got a calculator, they can do the math. Take roughly $40 million and divide it by 55,000 citizens in the city of Eau Claire. Maybe there's a few more people in the school district, but if you do the math, it's going to come to over $700 for every man, woman, and child in the school district. Now, if you amortize that out with a decent interest rate, you're going to see that it's going to cost you many, many dollars for many, many years out of your pockets. And when it comes right down to it, the bottom line is they don't need any more new schools. Building brick and mortar giant edifices to the memory of some long-lost president or general or something, that's passé, Fred. With the internet and the computer age, we're going into the 21st century. We don't need more bricks and mortar. You can teach 10,000 people with one camera and one professor and have it synchronized into a computer system and blast it all around the world. You can have classes with 10,000 people in it. And you can interrelate in real time with email and actually with cameras on the computers around the world. You can teach 10,000 or 10 million people out of one classroom, out of one closet with one person with a camera that's knowledgeable in that area, has expertise in that area. Say, for instance, English, 11th grade English, or high school English class. You can have one English teacher in one little room with lighting and a camera and a computer system and a modem and the internet and email.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ship that real time, live, around the whole world. And teach the whole world high school English, Fred.
Yes.
You don't need $40 million worth of school buildings to do it. You need about, probably for $5,000 you could get by, maybe $10,000 worth of equipment. And of course, that hour of class would be over, and you'd have another class in the high school mathematics, or high school science, or anthropology, or what have you, Fred. So it's passé to be building all these edifices just to fill the ego of some megalomaniac socialist that thinks that more buildings is better, Fred. That's a thing of the past. Only communists and socialists do that because, for one thing, it takes more money out of your pocket. And they can't stand to let one day go by without taking more money out of your pocket for more programs. Bigger, better, more. That's the slogan of the communist/socialist regime. To take more money out of your pocket and give it to the people that won't produce or what have you. It's a wealth transfer scheme. See, you're transferring the wealth of one segment of society to another segment of society. And if you've transferred enough to where there's that underbelly, underclass is not there anymore, well, just open up the floodgates of your borders and let a whole new underbelly, underclass come in. And then you can start the whole process over. Just give us another 40 million or give us another 100 billion and we'll solve the problems of the world. Well, that's all passé baloney. You don't need it anymore. With the internet system and the electronic age we're in, fiber optics and digital TV and digitalized, computerized systems, you can teach the whole world out of a room this size that we're in right now. Of course, speaking of this room, if you ever have a notion to come on down here, Fred gives tours 9 to 5.
I don't give any tours. That's
Monday
absolutely odd. You give them the tour, not me.
Monday through Friday.
I don't give any tours.
Come rain or shine, Fred will be here to
That's not true.
give you a tour of the Cow Report studio.
That's not true.
What's it take, about 20 minutes for the tour, Fred?
I don't know. I've never been
Well,
on
come
one,
in here.
never one, and I saw one.
Come in here and see the studios, the flag, the plans, the head of Common, the head of Common, the Mickey Mouse, and all the everything. You can see the original Flavin Pop bottle here, and if you're real nice, Fred will leave an autograph. Now, how many autographs?
I won't autograph anything for you. I don't do tours.
All right, okay, there you have it.
You do the tours.
9 to 5.
Yeah, you tour. You tour the people around.
Okay, all right. Well, Fred has been wanting to cut back there, so maybe we'll cut back to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. How's that?
I don't care for that. I'm not going to do any tours, period.
Oh, it takes what, 20, 25 minutes?
I don't care if it takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Well, this is a peak season, Fred. All the tourists are coming in.
Good. Let them come in.
All right, well,
you
Roy...
give them a tour then.
Roy, of course, we're speaking of Roy Rogers Hoff, will be putting up the phone number for those people that want to want to and that was a rendition of the Pied Piper song. There we had a short rendition of the live music there on the air. And of course, as usual, we have a lot to talk about, Fred. So, what have you got there that's permissible on family TV, Fred?
Well, they got here ex-campaign chief David Watkins says Marcia Scott is Clinton's White House mistress.
Marcia Scott, the one from the O.J. Simpson trial?
No, I don't think that was her though. She was referred to as Bill Tippy's girlfriend in the 60s.
Huh. Tell them to turn off that internet in there. Can't you see we're doing a live show? All right, okay, there you have it. All right. Well, Fred, this being, well, we have some birthdays to talk about, Fred. And of course, yesterday was Pope Paul II's birthday. He's 77 years old. Of course, he fell and broke his hip. He's been shot. He's had eggs thrown at him in the Pope Mobile around the world, and he still keeps on ticking, just like the bunny.
He's a good man.
And he was just in, of all places, the other day, he was in Lebanon, Fred, and I'll tell you, that is a dangerous place for any Christian to be. And he was driving right down the boulevard there, thousands of people cheering him on. But Lebanon is dangerous for anybody, Fred.
Yes.
And somebody with that much notoriety around the world to be there, they could have easily laid a mortar round in there or something. If you all remember, we lost almost 300 Americans in just one bombing attack there.
Yes.
During Reagan's administration, wasn't it?
Yes.
And of course there was a civil war in there for many, many years, and they just almost leveled Beirut. There was a Pope going right down the boulevard there, Fred, and it was amazing. 77 years old, a Polish Pope. And by the way, Poland is coming into the NATO, much to the chagrin of the former Soviet Union. Hungary, NATO, and the Czech Republic are coming in here in the next few months. Of course, there were some side deals cut there that there wouldn't be any nuclear weapons and any NATO heavy equipment put on site there, but Poland already has a kind of an antiquated military industrial establishment, and they have their own planes and tanks and their own army. And are we on the air there, Roy? What's going on? Are we live or not?
Audio's on, you gotta wait.
Wait for what? I got a show here. It's 9:15.
They're hearing you.
Well, we got picture?
Something's wrong with something in there yet.
Well, switch it over from that other studio to this one. They still got the studio camera on the other one there. All right, well, anyway, we're still here for those of you who don't mind having live TV radio, because I guess that's what we have right now. We have TV radio. You can't see us, but you can hear us. So for those of you who would like to call in, of course, we've had sabotage in the past down here, Fred. It's nothing new to have them sabotage this program. It's been done several times over the 20 years we've been on the air, and we hope that we'll have everything straightened out there. But in the meantime there, Freddie,
Yes.
we, you know, the balanced budget agreement's finally been approved there, and we're getting a balanced budget amendment.
Yeah, but not really gonna get the balanced budget off. It's a Clinton ploy.
It's amazing, Fred. We had the cameras and everything working just to be as pleased as punch there, just quarter till 9, and then we go on the air and we don't have it. But anyway, we're going to take a call here because I'll tell you, the Cow Report has been trudging along now for what, Fred, 20, 30 years? We haven't missed a program yet. We're not going to let a little bit of sabotage stop
Yes.
us, because we have the truth that we have to get out to the citizens of Eau Claire, and I don't care how many teachers out there and pro-communist / socialist school board members get bent out of shape because we talk about their secret little retreat they had where they carved up another $40 million worth of tax dollars and agreed to have another one of them Saturday night specials, Fred.
Yeah.
And of course, if they go ahead with this Saturday referendum, then we need to have a court order that takes away the whole election process from the school board, Fred, because that's kind of like giving a Republican or a Democrat the ballot boxes and let them print up the ballots and then hold the election at their leisure. It's not, it just doesn't strike me as being fair, Fred.
Hmm.
It just doesn't sound like something that is really totally on the up and up. You have to have a neutral party conduct free and fair elections, Fred. And of course, if we have to, we'll call in United Nations observers to make sure that these school board elections, this referendum is free and fair, and that they're not printing, over-printing ballots up there in the middle of the night at the school board building. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Chuck. This is Sid Sonia.
Yes, how you doing out there?
Oh, just fine, Chuck. I was sitting here enjoying the program, even if I can't look. But you know,
Don't have any picture out there yet?
no picture yet.
Huh.
Not yet. But the sound is good.
Well, I'll tell you,
The sound is the most important part.
yeah, well, we're videotaping this program, and we'll be showing it again next Sunday or next Monday, 2 o'clock for the visually impaired out there. Thousands of fans who are being deprived of their right to a video cavalcade of stars. And of course, speaking of Fred and I and others. So go ahead, caller. What's going on tonight?
Well, two of the hottest items right now in Eau Claire seem to be Gateway Drive and State Street. And I tell you what they want to do on State Street in tearing up what is the centerpiece now of our historical district is, whoever dreamed that one up is a disgrace. But the thing that I'm worried about, being that I'm not from the third ward down there in State Street, but I do care, and somebody dreamed up the idea that they want to put this special lighting to run halfway up State Street Hill.
Yeah, that's kind of weird lighting they put in the bigger cities now.
Well, I don't know. I think what they're talking about burying the cables, moving the poles, buying poles, instead of hanging them where they are on telephone poles, and moving them wouldn't cost us a dime. But this plan that they have would run us, the taxpayers, $164,000. Now, if they put prestigious lighting on, that would add another $54,000. So we're talking over $215,000 right off the bat, and some estimates have gone to $250,000.
Just for a few blocks of special lighting for
Right.
the university area.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it's for. What they have is adequate, and believe me, those telephone poles were there before the houses were there. And I'm certain they served then, and they would really serve the district more now, since we're looking at an older district. You know, that's one. But I've been reading where the city keeps claiming that they're losing $500,000 a year from the state funding because we've been too efficient or something like that. But they're talking about losing $500,000. And yet...
Well, we're bringing in, to just pull you in here for a second, we're bringing in special technicians from Channel 13 have been brought in special, and they brought in a special camera so that we can get this thing up on the air, and we
got to have a picture.
We really do appreciate Channel 13 coming to our rescue, and I'll tell you, we've been carrying them on Monday night for years, you know it?
Yes, but we got, oh, there it went again, but you had to have a picture for a while.
20 years now on Monday night, we've been releasing all of our fans at 10 o'clock so they can tune in to the 10 o'clock news over there. And now they're paying us back by hooking up another camera so that we can get the...
You are on the air.
You actually got a picture out there?
Got a picture.
Well, did we have a picture at 9? That's what I want to know. Did we went on the air without any picture at all? We just had sound?
This sound.
Huh. Well,
This is great. It's a great picture now.
good.
Oh.
Now you can see my...
Number one. That was number one when we're losing $500,000, and yet they're going to just, with a stroke of a pen, spend half of that amount on ridiculous lighting. Now that's one, but one that really worries me also is Gateway Drive, and you're reading about that. wanting to run this piece of road from Gulf Road up to Hamilton Avenue through this lady's property. And watching the replay of the last meeting of old council, when Bob Halloran got up urging the board put the street through because he had sold a piece of property to a church group. He's telling the city council to build him a road so he can make a profit from an organization that won't even pay taxes in the city of Eau Claire. He wants us to build a road, though.
I'll tell you, there's over 500 properties here in Eau Claire that don't pay any kind of taxes. They don't pay what they call a regular tax. They have a, that's why they supposedly have to have these special assessments to build curb gutter streets and sidewalks, because there's over 500 of them that are off the tax rolls because of tax exempt status, religious or what have you. And that's been the reason that the city council has claimed over the years that they can't spread out this tax burden on all the citizens of the city, because after all, aren't cities, isn't that what they're about, having decent streets, sidewalks, police protection, fire protection, the basics? Isn't that, and lighting, isn't that, and decent water, isn't that what basically the cities should provide for us instead of all the other frivolous bunk that they give us, and all the hiring hundreds of paper shufflers that argue over when they're going to play golf? Isn't it better to have decent streets and decent fire protection and adequate police services and have a decent sidewalk to walk down? And those are the things that all the citizens of the city should share on the cost, not going to a person individually and saying, this year you're going to pay 10 grand, and I don't care if you have to go rob your bank to do it. I don't care if you have to rob a bank. You're going to pay 10 grand this year to put about 100 foot of curb gutter and road in front of your house. That is just mafia tactics. Well, we lost that call, Roy. Are the phones back online now? We lost that call. Okay, have we got video now, Roy? Of course, I'm speaking of Roy Rogers Hoff, who's been frantically working for the last 25 minutes, and he's been with us now for many, many years out there, making sure that everything is electronically perfect. And sometimes the saboteurs come in here and they've been known to tie him up. And one time we came in there and he's all beat up and bloodied, Fred, and he said saboteurs came in there and ripped the microphones and out of there and everything and left him in a bloody pulp down there.
Is that right?
And of course, that's what happens when you're fighting communism, Fred. They're everywhere. All right. So we lost that call. Hopefully they'll call back again. But he was complaining about the State Street situation. Of course, you drive down there once in a while on State Street.
Bad.
And that one corner there, it's kind of a narrow corner for the thousands of cars that stop there at that four-way stop there at State and what eventually is Water Street. What is that? What's the street when it comes up over the bridge?
Yeah, Summit.
Summit? Yeah, State and Summit there, talking about they're going to have to widen that. Well, I don't see anything wrong with widening that a little bit, Fred. That's a very busy street there.
Yes.
And it feeds into the Claremont up on the hill there. You go up the hill, the State Street Hill, and you feed into Claremont. And there's thousands of cars that go by there every year, Fred. And it's always been a bottleneck right in that area there.
Yes.
From Summit going north as you go towards the downtown area there. It's just,
Yes.
just a terrible mess. It's kind of like that Menominee Street there from the Dairy Queen down to the Hobbs Ice Arena there. It's just a total worthless mess in there. Potholes and stuff. And finally they fixed the corner. One car went around the corner and totally disappeared, Fred. And they got a letter from China 6 weeks later.
I know.
The guy got a ticket over there in China. He didn't know where he was
I
at.
didn't believe it was. That was happening.
That's how bad the potholes were. Okay, Roy, we got phoneage. We got the phones up and running again. If it ain't one thing, it's another. Okay, have you got a phone number up there for all of our thousands of viewers? Now we welcome you back to the program. And of course, they said they've given us the okay out there in studio land to keep the show going now till 10:15 because of those dastardly saboteurs that came in here and sabotaged the equipment sometime between Friday night and tonight.
Yeah.
I tell you, they'll stoop to nothing, Fred, to try and drive this show out of business, but we've been on the air here more than many of our viewers have been alive, and we'll continue to bring the truth, justice, and the American way to our many thousands of fans in the greater Eau Claire area, which includes Union Township and Halley and Altoona and
Yes.
Elk Mound and even some other suburbs. And of course, we're brought to you by Flavin' Pop. You didn't get to see that at the beginning of the show.
Flavin' Pop?
And of course, May, we tried to tell you earlier, is National Earwax Society Month. And if you'll write to Fred, he'll give you
I'm not answering any mail.
he'll give you his address before the end of the show.
You
If you'll write to
ask
Fred.
Chuck to do
Okay,
it.
I've been looking in the wrong camera there. I think we're on camera 2 now, right, Roy? Roy stepped out for a cold one there. He's been known to...
Channel 4.
What? We're on camera 4 now. All right, okay, there we are.
Yes.
That's the one we should look at all night, right? We don't have the other ones aren't working. Okay, all right, there we are.
Yes.
Okay, straighten out there, Common. Smile. Okay. And National Earwax Society. And if you write to Fred, he'll tell you where all the collection sites are.
I'm not
You can pick up
answering
your
any
empty
mail.
can and fill it up. And make sure you get it back in before the end of May.
Write it to Chuck.
Make sure you get it before the end of May. Get it back to us because we gotta rush that earwax out to the bees because they haven't been able to make enough wax this year. And the earwax kind of acts as a starter wax for the bees so they can get the hives, the honeycombs going and get the little baby bees in there and get them started and get everything back because the first one was the Africanized bees that kind of wiped out a lot of the bees. And then we had a very rough winter last year and that killed many millions of bees. And so you probably noticed it at your stores in 2 areas, buying good honey and buying good wax for candles and other things of that nature. So make sure that you go to your earwax distribution center and pick up your can. And if you don't know where to go, just write to Fred and he'll give you the address of your local one in the greater Eau Claire area, of course. All right, Freddie, what do you got there?
Well, and this is from the Wanderer from St. Paul. The Washington Air Base Association represents the major airlines in the capital filed a suit against the federal court, arguing that the city of Frisco has no right to compel companies doing business with the city to provide domestic partnerships to their employees.
Huh. So what's that mean in...
Our airlines have been covered by federal, not local, laws because it would be impossible to operate in hundreds of communities with different and possibly contrary ordinances, said the ATA president, Carol Haddock, on May 13th when the suit was filed.
Huh. Well, our hats are off to Roy Rogers Hoff out there. Great-great-grandson of Sitting Bull on one side and Hopalong Cassidy on the other, and on the third side, Trigger, Fred. He looks like he's been sweating bullets out there getting this system back up and running. And he's just done yeoman's work over the years, Fred.
Yes.
All right, well, here we have Howard Phillips, Issues and Strategies Bulletin. And, of course, Fred, you and I are personal friends with Howard, and our friendship goes back with him now about 8 or 9 years. And remember that night we were talking to him about Pat Robertson?
Yes.
And why Pat Robertson didn't go to prison and Jim Baker did? Well, here's the latest thing from Howard Phillips on Pat Robertson. Did Pat Robertson trade anti-Marxist Mobutu for pro-communist Kabila? Of course, we're talking about the overthrow of Zaire. It's been on all of the TV networks over the last few days. As reported from Goma Zaire in the Wall Street Journal, April 30th, page 1, even in the midst of a civil war, this was a peculiar sight. Earlier this month, Pat Robertson's lawyer, Pat Mitchell, journeyed to the Zairean rebel headquarters here. Then he handed a letter to rebel officials. I have read with great interest of your success in Zaire, began the letter, which was addressed to rebel leader Laurent Desire Kabila and signed by Mr. Robertson on the televangelist Christian Broadcasting Network stationer. Robertson was Mobutu's business partner, complains now of corruption. Robertson, who was Mobutu's business power, complains now of corruption. The letter then talked about Mr. Robertson's long-standing concern for the Zairean people and of his failed campaign to end the corruption plaguing the country under dictator Mobutu Sese Seko. Christian coalition chief woos the foe Kabila of his friend Mobutu. In the letter, Mr. Robertson then did what would have been unimaginable only a few months ago. He asked Mr. Kabila, a former Maoist revolutionary and one-time kidnapper of U.S. citizens, to come to America as his guest. I would like to extend to you my cordial invitation to visit the United States as my guest in any way your schedule would so permit, it said. If Mr. Kabila were unable to accept the offer, then my lawyer, Pat Mitchell of Mitchell and Associates, would be delighted to offer assistance to you in a wide range of enterprises which I hope would be a benefit to you and the nation of Zaire. The letter, which a spokesman of Mr. Robertson confirms, is raising eyebrows in Zaire and among Africa experts in Washington who see the evangelist and the rebel as unlikely allies. After all, for the past 4 years, the conservative religious leader has been one of the staunchest supporters in the U.S. of the embattled Mr. Mobutu, lending his support when the Zairean dictator was a pariah in Washington and many capitals of Europe. And Howard Phillips asks, is loyalty just a one-way street? His activities in Zaire, however, largely have been commercial flops. His switching of sides, a maneuver shared by many other foreign businessmen as well, comes as Mr. Kabila's forces prepare to march on the capital of Kinshasa. And of course, this is about diamond mines and stuff, Fred. Pat's diamond mine was no jewel. Mr. Robertson's involvement in Zaire dates back to the early 1990s. Until recently, his Christian Broadcasting Network of Virginia produced television crusades to Zaireans from Kinshasa, though few people here can afford even a radio. Mr. Robertson also set up a private concern called the African Development Company to explore investments in mining, lumber, agriculture, transportation, and power generation. ADC's downfall, however, was diamonds. Mr. Robertson spent millions on dredges and equipment to mine a concession awarded to him by none other than Mobutu's government on a river near the village of Kamonia, close to the Angolan border. At the height of the operation, only a handful of mostly inexpensive industrial diamonds were mined. At about the same time, a farming operation run by Mr. Robertson's Operation Blessing outside of Kinshasa was also failing. In the fall of '95, he closed his Zairean operations. So it looks like Pat Robertson switching sides there to make sure he's on the winning side there, even though Kabila is a Maoist. And for those of you out there in La La Land, a Maoist is a follower of Communist Chairman Mao from China. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
How you guys doing?
All right.
Yeah, we've been watching your show for quite a while. We were just wondering where you, what bars you guys hang out with, so we can come by and have a few, buy you a beer or something, talk about stuff.
Fred,
I know Fred visits the bars. Come on, Fred.
Fred, you can find him down at
I
the
can't.
American Legion several nights a week, either playing bingo
I
or
don't-
sipping on a warm
I
beer,
don't.
or tap dancing out there on the dance floor.
You guys know Tom McHugh?
You know Tom McHugh?
No, I don't.
Legion.
Fred knows, should know him.
Legion?
Which Legion? There's several.
Oh, which one does Fred go to?
The one on Water Street.
Oh, heck yeah, that's where McHugh goes.
Fred holds court down there at Water Street. How many nights a week? Fred?
I go there one night a week.
One night a week. So if
Oh.
you want his autograph, you better get down there. What night is that? Friday night?
Monday night.
Wednesday night. How about you, Chuck?
I don't hang around the bars.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I gave them up many, many years ago.
What do you do then? Stay at home and hit that wacky tobacco?
Well, no, I don't do that either, but I found that the bar scene, unless you're drinking, there's just not much to it. Because you can go to the bar, and at the beginning of your bar experience,
Uh-oh.
you fit in, but as the other people around you get more and more drunk, you just kind of feel more of an outsider. You don't fit into the flow of the drunken orgy that follows, Fred. And so I know Fred, when he goes down there, he takes his one glass of beer, the
I
45
don't
cent
drink,
special,
I don't
and he
drink
puts it
beer.
on they have a little oven there and a little coffee can with
I
warm
don't
water in it.
fool- I
And he
don't
puts
drink
it in there and
beer.
he heats it to
I don't drink beer.
a putrid 98 degrees, and then he sips on it slowly, right?
I don't drink beer.
Oh, what was that in your hand that night out there at the Knights of Columbus?
That's the only place I've had one glass of beer.
All right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, P, how you doing?
All right.
Fred looks like he's gonna fall down over there.
Huh?
Fred looks like he's gonna fall down over there.
Red, Roy, are we both in the picture here?
He looks like he's gonna fall down.
Tell you, Roy in there lose 20 pounds tonight.
Hey,
Going back and forth, keeping his equipment working. I'll tell you, the board of public access has got to look at that Friday night punch, because I'll tell you, they don't put anything away after them, and the place is just a total mess when they're done.
hey, Chucky,
Yeah,
I gotta tell you something.
what's that?
You know Tom McHugh?
Who?
Tom McHugh?
Tom McTeer.
I need to get my security deposit back from Tom McHugh.
Took yours?
Yeah, he kept my security deposit. He drank it all up with Freddie over there.
He did.
Yeah.
You know this Tom McTeer that's all of a sudden
I
everyone's
don't
talking
think-
about?
I don't think so.
He drank it up. I heard the Knights of Columbus were gonna try and take over the American Legion down on Water Street.
Good.
Well, they've already got their own fine building over there, don't they, Fred? Is that the American Legion, or the Knights of Columbus own that building, don't
No, they don't own the American Legion.
they? Oh, they own the Knights of Columbus building.
Chuck,
Well, why would they want to take over the Legion?
They don't want to take it over.
hey Chucky,
Yeah,
man, you gotta be smoking the wacky tobacco with that hat on.
so your hat is an original, this is an original roadkill raccoon, and of course, it totally slipped our mind. This is the 943rd consecutive meeting, open meeting of the Royal Order of the Raccoons. Fred, I forgot to ask you, is there any new business?
Yes. Chevron Oil, major oil company, gas refiner, distributor, announced in early May that the company would provide domestic partnership benefits for the entire workforce, not just in its San Francisco employees. Chevron has 26,247 employees nationwide.
Okay, is there any old business?
Well, also a San Francisco utility giant, Pacific Gas and Electric, announced that it would provide its 20,000 employees with domestic partnership benefits. There are excellent reasons for doing this, said utility spokesman Mary Rodriguez.
Huh. Okay, have we had any new members join since the last time we were on?
No.
Have we had any old members resign?
No.
What's the total membership now of the Loyal Order of the Raccoons?
3.
All right, well, we're growing. Growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
How you doing?
All right,
Let's go back to that housing thing.
which one?
The McHugh thing.
Oh, yeah. I
So
don't
you
know.
got to get to know this guy. He's like, he takes everybody's money and he drinks it away.
Yeah.
What is he, a landlord, or
Oh,
just
he's a slumlord,
is he just a,
cocksucker.
okay, well, we're not gonna, I don't know the man, and I don't know what he's up to, and we're not gonna, say things about it that we don't know about for sure. Fred,
Yes.
was there, well, we can't read that on here either, Fred. We gotta watch what we say. This is a family program and a family hour. And Common Man, if you're watching out there, get your act together and forget about that racing. Either that or get that old car of yours, that car you call Sybil, and soup the thing up and get it in the race. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, say, I got a question for you. Basically, I guess what I understood you to be talking about over in Zaire, which is now called Congo, is,
Oh,
are
they
you
went
guys-
back to the Congo?
Are you guys married?
Okay, you know the old Congo.
Yes.
Well, if you guys are married, do either of your wives have a diamond?
Well, of course, all the diamonds come from Africa. Or
Well,
most
I
of
guess
them.
here's my point, because in theory, then, aren't you guys supporting communism or creating the communist uprising by, in fact, purchasing your wife's diamond? Because Mobutu was in bed with De Beers, right?
Well, so is the guy from South Africa.
I don't
Mandela.
think he's not if he's supporting the Mao region, or the Mao regime.
Well, see, the thing is, it's still raw materials and it has to be sold, or it can just sit there and rust or rot or whatever.
But I guess my point is that if the Africans are not allowed to have any wealth generated from the diamond sales, which come from their raw materials, people in Wisconsin, a lot of people have made livings off the lumber industry up in this neck of the woods, and if you're not allowed to go out and take trees and sell them at a reasonable fare and make some money on it, then what else are you going to do? You're going to fight back against the government. You want some of that money, and all of it right now is going to the De Beers Corporation. So in fact, by purchasing a diamond, wouldn't you be supporting communism? Creating a communist uprising?
Well, I don't think the De Beers bunch are communists. I think they're just capitalists that know how to mine and
I guess my point is I'm not that the De Beers Corporation is communism, but finally the people will overcome and overrun, which they've just done by sending Mobutu away.
Yeah, so what do we got to look forward in the Congo now? We've been having, Fred, you're old enough to remember the Congo uprisings.
Yes.
Wasn't that where they sent in United Nations troops and
Right.
What happened? Wasn't there some massacres there?
Yes.
Who got massacred?
They got rid of the man who was in Katanga. Got rid of him.
Moise Tshombe or something like that?
Yes.
And was there several thousand were butchered out there, wasn't it? Wasn't it United Nations forces were killing liberators?
They attacked them. Yes, they attacked the most Tshombe forces.
It just goes to show you there's nothing new under the sun in the Congo. Bingo, bango, bongo. All right. Next order of business here, Fred, at the old Cow Report / Loyal Order of the Raccoons meeting. We have something new to talk about, and what is it, Fred?
China?
Oh, where's your new American deal there?
Yes.
Said you had something going on
do.
there about something going on over there in that other part of the world over there with all that
Let's see, I don't...
all that shipping and stuff coming in here from China.
Yeah.
And we were going to talk about how we have to quit buying Chinese goods. I mean, I went into Walmart the other day and I couldn't believe it, all the Chinese stuff that was available in Walmart, and I was in Super America at the checkout counter, and they had some little trinket squirt guns and stuff. Every one of them said China on it. Then I looked at a bag of balloons, and it said made in Mexico. I'll tell you, I draw the line in one spot, and that's on food. I just don't. You just don't know how that food is processed over there in China and some of these third world countries. And I'll tell you, go ahead and buy some of your trinkets from these foreign countries, and of course that's all they are. They're creating trinkets for the American consumers that will buy anything if it's shiny or polished or has the right kind of paint job on it or whatever. They'll buy the trinkets, and a month later they'll be in the paper can. And of course that's what Japan realized about the United States. We're a consumer, a throwaway nation. We consume and throw away and consume and throw away, and if you don't believe me, I've predicted many, many times over the last 20 years that we would have to go in and start mining our landfills to mine it for the precious metals and all the things with glass and the aluminum and the steel and all the things that we have thrown away over the last 50 years and filled up landfill after landfill, because it's been with the trinkets of countries like Japan and Taiwan and Korea and Indonesian countries and now the big one, Fred, the big China.
Yes.
And we're going to pay for it. China is just flooding this country. We're losing many thousands of jobs to the 1/5 of the world population
To China.
that's creating all of these trinkets and all these baubles and all these shiny things, and And Americans are just gobbling it all up, and they think, boy, isn't that cheap and of good quality, and of course it's going to break down or it's going to be in the trash because it's just all those shiny little trinkets and baubles. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff made from foreign countries now.
I'll tell you, China is just out, just wiping everybody else out. They're just swallowing up everything.
They all are good American products.
Wait till they have Chinese cars over here. Right now you're seeing just like the progression of Japan. They started out with all the little ceramic trinkets and the little metal toys and all those little things right after the war, and then it kind of gradually went up to the Honda motorcycle, and then you saw the first of the small cars that came in, and then the bigger cars, and then lawnmowers, and then all your television equipment, all your VCRs, your video cameras and your VCR players, and then into the computer industry, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of things now that you can't buy unless you buy from Japan. But China is going to dwarf Japan, and they're going to move into all those same areas that Japan took over.
Yeah.
And they are moving in there now. Now they're in the textiles and shoes and all the little trinkets and the funny little squirt guns and all the toys and the little ceramic knickknacks and all the other, and all the, just you name it. It's out there and it's coming from China. Everything says made in China.
Art Taiwan or Japan. Hardly anything.
Huh, this cup right here says made in China.
That Mickey Mouse thing probably is too.
I think that this here flag says made in the USA.
Oh, what about
Flavin' Pop is 100% made in the Chippewa Valley by Chippewa Valley artisans.
No.
Yeah.
What about
Hand me that there Mickey Mouse thing. Let's see if it's made in China. That's been around here for many, many years on the old Cow Report, and I don't recall that saying that it was made in China. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have the Disney logo on it. I don't know where that was made. All right, so what's your point?
I don't know, just all junk. Most
Well, it'll progressively get better as the demand increases and the people desire better things at a cheaper price. China will probably provide them and dwarf all the other Asian nations, and pretty much it's going to end up boiling down to the kings of the East are going to march towards the West, and we're going to have a 100 million man army on our hands to fight. And who will be able to fight against a 100 million man regularly equipped army? But they also have another couple 100 million home guard army with sticks and knives, and we just got a little foretaste of it back in Korea when the hordes came over the from northern Korea into the south and almost drove the United Nations forces and the Americans into the sea. If it hadn't have been for the counterattack with the bombings from the air, we'd have lost Korea and probably most of Southeast Asia right then, Fred. And you're young enough to remember Korea, Fred.
Yes,
It was a mess on our hands when the Chinese came over that border.
I know it.
And that's nothing, that's just a foretaste of what's to come when the 100 million man, heavily armed Chinese army comes across with their nuclear weapons and starts marching towards the west. And they add their missiles that countries like Germany and Israel and others have provided to them, and their submarines and
This
their
book,
airplanes and all the other things,
The
Fred.
Coming Conflict with China, Richard Bernstein and Ross H. Monroe wrote it, and it should be read by every American.
Of course, the Chinese now have some have a 600 ship commercial shipping outfit that's supervised by the People's Liberation Army. And of course, everything from China is owned and controlled and operated by the Russian or the Chinese Army. The Communist Chinese Army controls all commercial enterprises within China. And what they don't have their soldiers building, they have the soldiers' family building. And what they don't have the soldiers' family building or making, they have Christian prisoners and other prisoners, dissidents, and people that are for capitalism. They are rounded up and put into concentration camps and made and forced to make those shoes and those T-shirts and all the hundreds of thousands of different items that are flooding into this country from China. That's done with slave labor, and all that money goes back to buy AK-47s and to build Chinese airplanes and to build their armada, their shipping industry that's beginning to become one of the largest shipping concerns in the world. And of course they do many things with that, including going in and fishing, and people out there worried about the dolphins. Go out there and see some of that Chinese fisheries. Well, how they're doing it. They're just swallowing up everything with vacuum cleaners, Fred. I'm telling you, it's going to boil down to the war with China, Fred.
Yeah.
It's even mentioned in the Bible.
Right.
And who's going to be able to fight against a 100 million man, heavily armed, marching army, marching from the east towards the west? It's going to be like locusts.
Well,
Who's going to stop them?
what Mr. Clinton wants to do is even cut our armed forces further. And we're not going to have anybody left to defend us.
You know, we're down to less than a 2 million member army now. We don't even have enough to fight two small skirmishes at one time.
I know it.
The last time that we were able to do that was in the Gulf War. We had enough that even though we had all that over there in the Gulf War, we still had enough to fight another major skirmish somewhere else in the world if it came upon us simultaneously. We do not have that capabilities now. And with the puppets in the White House, controlled by their communist handlers in places like Cuba and China, we're being sold out lock, stock, and barrel. And of course, one of the companies that we're getting sold out to by the socialists in the White House is a company called Costco, Fred. And what does Costco stand for? Is that Chinese something or other shipping company?
Yes.
And they, the Clinton administration set up a sweetheart deal with them for a, what was it, a deep sea port there?
The Long Beach Naval Base.
Long Beach Naval Base wants to hand it over to the Chinese so that they can flood millions of tons more of their trinkets into this
The ironic
country.
part about it is the Republicans are doing nothing about it.
Well, Fred, I think we've got the word out now, and we're putting up a fight against this thing coming into being. I think it's on hold now, and it might even be where the Chinese are pulling out now that we've lifted the curtain. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, say, first off, I want to ask you, who bought the coffee cup and who bought Mickey Mouse? Are you supporting the Chinese?
This here belongs to the our benevolent studio here.
Okay, so you're not claiming any of it then?
No, it's not my coffee cup.
Nothing that you're wearing would have been made in Malaysia?
I don't know. Let's see here. This is an original O.J. Simpson glove.
You know, how about your eyeglasses? And I guess the point really is, are you going to claim that nothing that you have was made in China or Malaysia?
Malaysia? How'd that get in there?
Well, you said you actually mentioned Malaysia.
Well, I'll tell you, China's going to swallow them all up.
Okay, then what would be the problem with that if they're moving towards capitalism?
They're not.
They're not. How are
communist-
they not moving towards
The
capitalism?
Communist Chinese Red Army controls all enterprises in China.
They own all enterprises in China.
Yes.
Okay.
And you don't get to do anything in China unless you have their cooperation and their approval.
Okay.
It's 1/5 of the world population. It's all under communism. Nothing has changed over there since 1949, when they butchered millions of people and took over that country.
And
Still
are
a
you
communist-
referencing the They catalog?
Yeah, the communist butchers that took over China.
No, but I mean, where do you get your sources? Is that from the They group?
What do you mean?
Or is that what they say?
No, that's history.
The coming conflict with China is a good source if you
That
want
guy
to read.
evidently was born in 1980.
And
Fred.
here, this
Probably
is
about 16.
Red China's that's from the New American, which is published in Appleton, Wisconsin.
When the communists overthrew the democracy in China, it set up the eventual collapse of part of Korea and Southeast Asia, the loss of North and South Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos, and almost Thailand, and Burma is a socialist/communist nation. And that was all because of the big Chinese dragon up there hovering above them there. And it's all going to boil down to the kings of the East, including the 100 million man army of China, is going to march towards Israel in the final battle, Fred. And who's going to be able to stop an army like that, even with nuclear bombs?
That's a good question.
Go ahead, caller, you're on air.
Hi, Chuck. Thought you might like to listen to a woman caller for a change.
Well, it's about time.
Oh, you have lots of fans, I'm sure. I agree with the point that was made about Chinese goods that come into the country that that's about all it's good for is trinkets and that. And I think that based on past experience that we had with some high technology VCR labeled made in China, I think that the more highly advanced technology, if it says made in China, that people are probably going to steer away from it if they had a bad experience or two.
They still have some work to be done, but they're getting into that, though. That's what, and of course, Japan didn't start out making the best cameras and the best lawnmowers and the best automobiles, the best motorcycles, but they were able to, what they couldn't invent, they swiped and tore down and totally dismantled it and said, we're going to build it exactly like that, and then we're going to not only build it as good as American or German, we're going to make it better.
Of course, we've got all these international companies nowadays, and we had a VCR that was made by Magnavox, only it was made in China. Actually, we had a couple of them. They had the same built-in factory defect where they left out a cable. Yeah, and I would dare say probably a number of your viewers might even have them, and they have a nice stereo VCR, and they make recordings on it, and they play them, and they have sound. But if they ever put one of those tapes into a monorail VCR, there won't be any sound because they left out a little cable.
Did you know that, Roy?
And that's an example of a product that was made in China, but it isn't a Chinese brand name, really, because Magnavox is an American company, but it's, I think, owned by Philips, which I think is probably a Dutch company.
Well, they, like your camcorders now, I think most of them are made in either Japan or maybe a few of them are starting to be made in China, but even all the different labels, there's, what, Roy, is there only like 3 companies in the world, and they're all Japanese making camcorders? Isn't that about it, Roy? About 3 companies? Same with the VCRs. They just put different labels on them. Sears puts their label on them, and Magnavox puts their label on them. But it's pretty much, by and large, it's foreign made, and that's unfortunate that we've lost industry after industry. And like I say, they said we'll make it as good or better, and we'll make it cheaper. And they won't. How can they resist? They get just as good a quality, but they all. Japan and China both started by making the trinkets and all the little knickknacks and stuff because it generates cash, and that's what they need. And when you're only paying a nickel an hour or a quarter an hour, it really makes a difference.
That's probably true. But a lot of times some of these things cost a lot of cash, and you end up with trash if they're made in factories where the workers really don't have a clue what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
That's my opinion. I'm so glad that you guys finally did get on the air tonight. If you ever want to name this episode, you could call it the Mad Cow Report.
Okay, well, thank you. And we do eat our share of beef. And we do love our beef, Fred. And, of course, didn't you just get some beef sent over from your homeland over there in England, Fred?
No.
Some suspect beef?
I'm not eating any meat right now.
Okay, all right. Well, go ahead, caller. You're the final call of the evening, and even though we lost 15 minutes of precious video time, we're here to serve you. So go ahead.
Yeah, why are you guys so racist?
Who says where? What are you talking about?
I mean, you guys are ripping on them Japanese, I should say.
Was that makes us racist because we're talking about Japanese products overwhelming American products and cheap labor?
Well,
What's that got to do with being racist?
it's gonna happen, you know.
We're talking about Chinese goods versus American goods and jobs versus Japanese goods. What's that got to do with racism? I'll tell you, get your heads screwed on straight because we're going to be back next time, and you saboteurs out there are not going to get the old cow report off the air. We'll be here today, tomorrow, and 20 years from now because this is the cow report. And I've been your host, Chuck Lee, and of course with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the True Stabber.
Hello.
And our engineer, Roy Rogers Hoff, who helped us get the technicians from Channel 13 down here to get back on the air. And we thank you for viewing. We'll see you right here again next time. Adios, amigos and amiguettes.